Good evening. My name is Matt Hill. I'm the superintendent of the Burbank Unified School District. I apologize, I have a cold. Do I need to speak up for the back row? Is it? Yeah. I'm a soft talker anyway, so I will lean into the microphone. We are live streaming and recording tonight's forum so that we can have some people watching at home. So if people they won't know, but if you want to tweet or text people if they are at home, on the Burbank Unified School District Facebook page, we are live streaming tonight's forum, and the city of Burbank has graciously offered a videotape tonight as well, and so we will set up some playback of the forum. First of all, I want to thank Emilio Iurasti and the adult school staff for allowing us to host here tonight. They put a lot of work into making this event possible, so if we can give them applause. To cover some logistics, bathrooms are out down the hallway to the left. You'll see a sign. We also have childcare if necessary for individuals. And as you came in, you can exit through that hallway or exit behind you. For tonight's meeting, you'll also notice that we have these yellow cards that are being distributed. There's some as you walked in, but we also have staff that will pass these out and collect them. If you just raise your hand, they'll be able to give you the yellow cards. The key reason that we're doing the yellow cards tonight is we each come from a different personal perspective about mental health, stress, anxiety. There's a lot of topics that we could cover tonight. What we wanted to make sure that we could provide are a couple forums. So tonight's a forum where we can really share the resources. I want to thank all the panelists, and I'll introduce them in a second, to share the work that we've been doing in Burbank and the work that we want to continue to do and the work we need to focus on going forward. Your questions and comments on these cards will help guide that. We will address as many as we can this evening. But there's also an opportunity on Monday evening. Myself and Lori Blake from Burbank Family Service Agency, we're going to host an open house over at the Wellness Center at John Burroughs. If you want to have more of a back and forth dialogue or a conversation with us about the work that we're doing here in Burbank, again, that's on your agenda. It's going to be at the Wellness Center that's on the Keystone Avenue, about halfway down the block. And again, that's Monday evening from 6 to 8 o'clock. So that's another forum or another venue that we want to set up to have a conversation. With a large audience that we're expecting tonight, it's going to be challenging to have every individual question answered. But we also wanted to make sure that if individuals are here tonight and they have a personal challenge or something that they're working with that they need help with for themselves or for their child, Family Service Agency of Burbank graciously has offered therapists to be here this evening. So if there's a topic you see on the backside that you don't have to fill out the card if you want to get it addressed tonight, it's more of an individual, personal nature that you want to talk to a therapist this evening. If you go back to where you came in, to the back door, there's a table where FSA is set up, and they will walk you down. We have 2 rooms set up with some therapists this evening. So we know that some of you may want that support this evening. You may have personal or challenges that you want help and resources directed to you. That's the backside of the card as well. The topic of mental health and student wellness, us educators and providers, sometimes we slip into acronyms or jargon. At any moment, feel free to wave at us and say, I don't know what you're saying. I realize I just said FSA by only introducing Family Service Agency of Burbank once, so I'll make sure that I spell that out. Family Service Agency of Burbank is a local provider of mental health resources for us, and we'll provide more explanation about the great partnership we have in the schools. But they do have therapists here tonight that we are making available for people to talk to if they have that individual nature. So for the format of tonight, you'll see on the agenda, really the goals that we have is to provide the resources and let the community know, as well as parents, staff, et cetera, about the resources we have in our schools to support parents and families and staff members. We also know that there's going to be a potential questions that we can dive into, and that's what those cards are that I highlighted earlier. So we will give a brief overview of each of us on the panel and our passion, our interest around this work. And then we're opening it up into the cards so that we can do a panel discussion around the questions that we're receiving. I received several questions about, well, why now? What's the main focus? And I want to answer that in twofold. I think the first, we have had student loss this year. And I know we've lost 2 students that were attending Burbank Unified Schools. And I know there's a lot of frustration and concerns in the community. People want a lot of answers about what happened to those students. And as the superintendent of the school district, been very clear that we don't feel important. I especially don't feel empowered to share information about a child, especially a child's death. I think to respect the privacy of the family, that information is not disclosed. At the same time, we know through social media, through networks, our children, they get information and they talk about that. So these topics and these deaths are talked about in great detail. And I wanted to just talk about how we respond as a district and how we can respond as a community. So one, based on the feedback that we received, it was important to have a conversation with the community. And this isn't the first, and this is not going to be the last conversation that we have. Tonight, we're not going to go into details about the students that passed away. But we do want to talk about topics that are influencing all of our students here in Burbank. I think it's critical that we discuss that, and when we do have tragic deaths, we also should be mindful about the information that we share as individuals amongst each other. The lives that our children are living in right now, the lives of our lives, it's complex, it's multifaceted. We may have bits of the information. We got to be careful that we are not trying to assume things. We're not trying to spread information that we may not know is true. We heard it secondhand, thirdhand. But we do need to have the important conversations about mental health, stress, depression, anxiety, suicide, bullying, harassment. These are topics that 10, 20 years ago were not being discussed openly, even 5 years ago. And that leads to the second part of why we're having this conversation. This is not the first time this community has worked together. Our partnership with Family Service Agency of Burbank and the school districts is going on for years, decades. Same with the Burbank Police Department. The resources that we're providing in our schools, we continue to enhance. And part of the reason I came to this district was I was inspired by a school board in a school district that was having these conversations openly. So our board has passed very progressive and thoughtful policies around mental health and supports for students, and we've made investments on those needs, those challenges in our schools. Is it enough? Absolutely not. We have survey results that we recently received back, and we're going to be discussing at our June 21st board meeting. But we surveyed over 3,300 high school students here in Burbank, and over 50% of them said that they are often stressed or always stressed. 65% see a need for themselves to talk to a counselor or a mental health provider about anxiety and stress. 75% say that they believe their friends should have those conversations and receive that support. However, 75% have said that they have not used school services related to mental health and wellness. So we clearly have a need that our students are telling us in their own words through surveys. We can clearly have added more resources and supports, but we haven't figured this out. And there's not a district or community in this country that has. If people know of examples, that's something we want to hear about on the cards. So as you jot down notes today, if there are best practices of school districts or cities or communities that you feel are addressing or being progressive and meeting the needs of their communities, we want to hear about that as well. As a school district, we will never say we've done our job, we're done. What we will say is we have partnerships, we strengthen those partnerships, we've done a lot, but we want to continue to grow and support our students. And so I expect, based on some of the emails and face-to-face conversations and phone conversations that I've had over the last couple of days, weeks, months, that there's personal stories that we want to hear about that say, when did it work well, when didn't it work, and what else can we do? One thing I got concerned about, and I don't post on social media a lot, but I do scroll through it, especially when people direct it to me. I've deleted my, and I'll be clear about that, I have deleted my Facebook app like 3 times over the last year and a half, but then eventually something happens and there's 20 tweets or Facebook posts about something I said or did, so I do tend to try to follow up on that and read it. I'm not ignoring everyone, I personally don't like to engage in the social media dialogue. I like to get those questions, and I'm much better at phone calls, emails, or face-to-face conversations. But by reading that, my one concern that I have at times, many times actually, is that we start to point fingers, and we start to blame people, and we start to ask questions, but they're not always the most productive questions. I'd like to set the tone for this evening of, as a community, let's ask each other the difficult questions, the questions we don't always talk about, but the productive questions. And what I mean about that is, what are we doing now? Let me understand the resources. Because again, 75% of our students know someone or themselves want support, but they're not accessing the resources. So what can we do better to share what we have now? And then for those that we have done a good job of communicating the resources and the supports, and it worked, let's talk about that and celebrate it. And probably more importantly, the ones that have accessed our resources and it didn't work, let's learn from that. One size does not fit all in this challenging, complex topic. But what I'm inspired by is that we have a room full, and many more that want to be here and watch, of individuals that care, they're compassionate, and they want to find solutions. And so tonight is really about increasing awareness of what we already provide, increase the collaboration and the partnership, and then working together to identify additional supports and mechanisms to help support our children and us as adults as well. And so with that, I want to, and we'll just go down the line, if that's okay, but I'll give a high-level introduction of who's up here, and then I'm going to ask each individual to spend about 2 to 3 minutes talking about why they're on this panel, kind of what they want to accomplish through the work that they're doing, and sharing information and resources that we have. But I'll go ahead and do a high-level introduction, and then we'll go down. We have some students on our panel. So we have Mira Varna, who just recently graduated from Burbank High School, is going to UCLA in the fall. So thank you for being here. So we have Nicole and Valeria, students John Burroughs High School that have been engaging in work around building awareness around mental health and connecting with students and sharing it. We have Les Coleman, counselor at John Burroughs High School, who's also our representative from the Burbank Teachers Association. And Jenny Goodwin from Family Service Agency, as well as George Hallbrook from Family Service Agency at Burbank. I keep wanting to say FSA, so probably a half hour, an hour in, I'm going to start saying FSA, but you can wave at me if I start using jargon again. Tammy Shern is our Director of Special Education and Psychological Services for the district. We have Johanna Chase, who's our Director of Wellness for the district. This is a new position, part of the board policies in our master plan to help have an individual that looks at the holistic view of the services in the district, from health services to intervention services to partner relationships around mental health and other aspects of our job. And then at the end we have Mike Albanese from the Burbank Police Department, who's represented the mental health evaluation team, or the BPD Med team is the acronym that you may hear. So I'll let each one of those individuals give more of a detailed explanation of who they are and where they are today. So why don't we start with Mira?
Hello, my name is Mira Varma, and I recently graduated Burbank High School. So we're all here for a common goal to learn about mental health, and I'm personally on this panel because mental health is something that I deal with and I have been dealing with for quite a while now, and I'm here if any of the parents have any questions about mental health and how to help their students, their kids who are suffering from any mental health problems. I'm here to just say that, just provide like a sense of hope that it does get better, and I wanted to be just an example of like even though students do suffer from mental illness, they still can be successful, and there is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And if you guys have specific questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. And if your question doesn't get asked during this panel, I would be more than happy to answer them after this is over. So please don't hesitate to ask. I'm pretty much an open book, and I'd love to help in any way that I can. Thank you.
But before sorry, I'm going to interrupt. People are asking what to do with the yellow cards. So we have staff members, if you can raise your hand. So Dr. Kissinger, is anyone going to help you? Dr. Paramo, Ms. Caseo, Dr. Wong. They'll walk up. If you wave your hands with the card, they'll collect them, and then we'll start to sort them and try to group them by topic so that the panel can address. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. Hi. As mentioned before, Valeria and I are currently working on a student coalition called CARE, and the reasoning behind this is because we want this to be a way for students to enter the conversation about mental health, because mental health in our school is a very hush-hush kind of thing. It holds a stigma. But over the past few months, we have realized that students have a lot to say about this topic, and we have an opinion about it, and we want to contribute to this big mystery of why aren't these programs working, what else can we be doing, and this is a way for students to play a leading role and to give, I wouldn't say advice, but to give feedback and to enter, like I said, the conversation. Part of our student coalition, a program that we want to start is called the report card, and it's something that we would be using to check the systems. We would be getting student feedback and distributing that feedback to the district so to properly serve as a guide to better help our needs.
What's the name of the program again?
It's called CARE. It's a student coalition.
Okay.
And so along with our CARE coalition, we have other programs set to place. So we want to have mental health advocates, where we facilitate and spread knowledge on mental health and host events and have speakers that are chosen by students in order to facilitate conversation. Mental health advocates, we are looking for pretty much anyone who's passionate about all of our mental health and our well-being. We'd be doing training for 6 months to be able to properly speak and facilitate conversation and be pretty much very all knowledgeable on the resources on campus, off campus about mental health and well-being and therapists and all of that. And as well as we're going to have a board of advisors who really just wise adults who do care about well-being and our mental health of diverse backgrounds. So anyone who's interested to contribute to our project and to our program and to give us advice for anything, let us know. Thank you.
And also, two big parts of the CARE Coalition program is that we are working with FSA to train with a professional that deals with social media. I know that social media and the surveys have shown to have a very negative effect on students. Even some students admit that. But we feel as though it could be turned into a positive way if properly manured. So we want, with the help of this professional, to properly teach students how to navigate social media, as well as establish a website, our own CARE website, that students can access, knowing that it's trusted by other students. So all the programs that are on the website will be checked by students and will be checked how effective they are, so that students feel more confident and open to asking for help when regarding mental health issues.
I guess lastly, we hope to, sorry, we hope to connect pretty much the students to the district, to the wellness center, to everything, to be able to facilitate and be a part in just bringing in more student input and voice into the campus, and also to spread it, hopefully be a structure which can be tweaked for all the other schools and districts.
Jumping up. Sorry. We keep taking the microphone from Les. I apologize. I did want to take this moment and this opportunity just to highlight when we were planning this event, and I neglected to thank everyone, but we had representatives from the PTA, Carol Briggs, Amy Cam, we had other parents, Suzanne Wirtz, we had individuals from the organizations represented on this panel, and we were talking about, okay, how do we pull together a forum and make it meaningful for the audience, make it meaningful for students, and we said we need to have student voice on the panel. And before we could even outreach to students, the three of them separately emailed me and said, we heard you're having a forum, we want to be on the panel. And I wanted to make sure I was very clear and acknowledge that, because if we create this space in the environment for our children and our students to be engaged in these conversations, they will rise up and advocate with us and partner with us. So I just want to acknowledge that for the three young ladies. For me, I'm going to speak, I'm going to try not to tonight to speak personally about my own experiences, but I think this is a global statement that can apply to many of us. When I was growing up, it wasn't something that was encouraged for us as young adults and children to talk about mental health and ask for support or get engaged. And so there is a generational shift I think we need to acknowledge, that our students want help, they need help, and they're willing to work with us to advocate for that help. So we just got to keep that environment as we continue forward. But again, thank you, the three of you, for being here and being active participants in this panel and beyond. So thank you. Sorry, Les.
So my name is Les Cohen, and thank you all for coming tonight. I'm really glad to hear that the students are getting involved, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. I'm a counselor at John Burroughs High School, and I think Dr. Hill mentioned earlier that the mental health issues that students are presenting with have increased over the last 10 years, even more so over the last 5 years. And I've just noticed that anecdotally myself. I find that my day is being taken up more and more by kids who are asking for help and presenting with problems. And some of the things, so I started researching this about a year ago, and I looked at some articles, and the three main factors that writers have come up with that are kind of attribute the growing number of kids presenting with mental health concerns are, a couple of them have already been mentioned. One is social media. Another one is cell phone addiction, because cell phones are really more than just something to talk on and communicate on. They're delivery systems for addictive things. Like cigarettes used to be delivery, or they still are, but smoking, I guess, has gone down a lot. Cigarettes are delivery devices for nicotine, and cell phones are delivery devices for all kinds of addicting things. And the third thing is the recent epidemic of campus shootings. Kids worry about that sort of thing. And anyway, I'm glad to be up here. I was honored to be invited to sit up here with these people. And I'll be here also, glad to answer any of your questions this evening. And so I will pass the microphone.
Hi, I'm Jenny Goodwin. I have a cold too, so bear with me. I have been working with FSA for 13 years now. I'm a licensed therapist. I hold the title of Director of Operations, and I direct all of FSA's school-based counseling programs. That would include our wellness care centers, the individual counseling that happens on the 19 campuses every single day, Monday through Friday, and also the special ed program for students that have counseling in their IEPs. I'm here to inform you of the services that we have, that we could bridge the gap between children and parents, and between the services that we also have at our agency that can help support families that are struggling. And also to educate about mental wellness. You know, it's not always about mental illness, but we want preventative measures. And so through our counseling program, we can prevent things from happening if we can look at it in that regard. So thank you for having me.
And good evening. My name is George Holbrook. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist at Family Service Agency. And I've been at Family Agency for about 18 years. And I really consider the agency as my professional home. Some people in their careers don't stay 18 years at one particular facility. But because of the passion of the work and the work that I get to do, that's why I've been there for as long as I have. I'm here tonight just to kind of field some questions, give people an opportunity to ask things about what the therapy is, what's our goal and objectives. Something that I tend to share quite often is, you know, when I came into the field, that wasn't my initial intention, and as you can tell by the color of my little goatee here, that was a long time ago. I actually did a volunteer work in an Orange County, very small mental health agency, long time ago, as part of my undergraduate work. And at the time, I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go. The agency was very tiny, but they did services primarily in the agency. At the time, when I approached them and asked if I could do some volunteer, they said, you know, we have an idea for doing school-based service. Would you be interested? And I said yes, not knowing that there was no program. All they were asking me to do was figure it out. So at the time, I went to a couple of high schools, you know, offered counseling services to the teens. And from that experience, because it was such a great opportunity, but more importantly, I was very shocked by how many students came voluntarily to want to talk to somebody. And from that, I built a career around that concept. And I also built a philosophical belief that therapy is really, as much as most people's perception of therapists are, we sit in rooms with individuals and we delve down into the psyches to find all those things that are giving us problems. What I found is that most of the clients, really what they needed and what I wanted to facilitate was building better relationships with the people closest to them, which is their family members, their extended family, friends, relatives, whoever they might be. And I found that therapy was most effective if we can build that support for a person and not just focus on the individual. So if there's any questions that I can assist with, I'm more than happy. And thank you again for having me.
Hello. My name is Tammy Shern. I'm the Director of Special Education and Psychological Services for Burbank for the school district. Prior to moving into this position, I was a school psychologist in this district for the prior 19 years, actually. And during the entirety of those 19 years when I was a school psychologist, I supported our students whose mental health and social, emotional, and psychiatric needs were such that they required special education supports in order to access their education. And now I oversee a wonderful team of 15 school psychologists. We have school psychologists at every single one of our school sites who help support all students who have social emotional needs. Our department provides a full continuum of supports and services to support our students and their needs. And I'm just here to share that information. I don't think that everybody knows what's happening. I think a lot of the work that we do sometimes is invisible, and obviously it's very private. And people don't always talk about the challenges that they're having with their students. And I know sometimes when I used to tell people what I did, people would be really surprised that, wow, the school district does that, the school district does that. And yes, we do. We provide, like I said, a full continuum of supports to support these kids that are suffering from depression, anxiety, even more severe, you name it, any kind of mental health or condition. And we provide supports. We don't treat the challenges, but we provide support so that they're able to still access their education and get the supports that they need so that they can still graduate with a high school diploma. And we're here for you. I work out of the Department of Special Education at the district. If anybody has any questions, wants to learn more about those supports that we offer these students, we're here to answer your questions. Our school psychologists, we have, like I said, 15. They are at every single school in the district. Our middle schools and high schools have full-time school psychologists, and some of our elementary schools share them because they're smaller. Our school psychologists work primarily with students with special needs that are on individual education programs. However, they also they do the crisis response. They're one of the first lines of responding to a student who may be in emotional crisis on campus. And while our school psychologists don't do therapy, they're there to do risk assessments. They're there to guide students to the appropriate resources to help the students and families get the help that they need. So don't hesitate to reach out to your school psychologist. I also just want to touch on really quickly this series of 13 Reasons Why. If you have any questions about that, it's a book, it's a Netflix show, and your school psychologist also has a lot of resources that they can share with you about how to talk to your child about this book and this series. On the agenda, there's a link to the 13 Reasons Why Toolkit, which is a really, really great resource to guide you. Like, I used it myself because I have 2 teenage kids of my own, so I used it myself to talk to my daughters about the 13 Reasons Why. It provides excellent guidance to guide you on how to address not just the series and the book, but the issues that are raised within it. So I recommend definitely going to that website. And I'm here to answer any questions if any are directed to me.
I want to highlight on what Tammy was just talking about. So the second season of 13 Reasons Why is out now. And if you don't know about it, it's something you should ask your children about if they're going to watch it or just monitor this. But it really talks about depression and suicide. And without the toolkit and the guidance on how to talk to your child or other children about it, we have concerns on the panel about that. So the National Association of Psychologists created this toolkit, and I think it's important. And it's on the link's on the agenda because that is it's a series that can bring awareness, but if it's not talked about appropriately, we have concerns about it.
Good evening. I'm Johanna Chase, and I'm the Director of Wellness with Burbank Unified School District. And I echo much of what everyone has said on the panel already. The issues that are facing our school-age population are multifaceted. And it takes a collaborative team, many of whom you see here on the panel, to be able to provide the support to the students and the families to help our children, our students work through and be successful academically and personally. So we take a whole school, whole community approach to support all aspects of that whole child. And Although the position that the board created here is relatively new, we've only been here 7 months. We have recognized that there has been some tremendous inroads, and Burbank is a leader in many ways, and yet we're still confronted with the challenges that all school systems and all communities face across the country. And so tonight, for those of you who are here and those of you who are home, we're tremendously grateful to be able to hear what we can be doing more of, and also share what we have been doing, as Tammy said, because we do have resources. We are providing that support, but sometimes folks aren't aware of it. My department has a website that has a myriad of resources on it, from how to support regarding suicide prevention and intervention, bullying prevention intervention, what our nurses do, what our intervention specialists do, how we're bringing Second Step, which is an empirically research-based program, into our elementary schools to teach children impulse control and empathy skills and interpersonal communication. What we're doing in our middle schools and our high schools around changing our school cultures so it's caring and nurturing and engaging and collaborative together, because we really do need to work together in this issue. I pulled up just a couple quick statistics. I won't go into a lot. 67% of school-aged youth are experiencing trauma. And the best way to sort of describe it is an emotional response to something that's powerful to an individual. And it can manifest itself in 2 major ways. Sometimes behaviors are externalized. Sometimes you see it in self-harm. Sometimes you see it as a desire to exert power over others. Sometimes children become withdrawn and they internalize that. So that's why together we can find ways to help children move through and develop the skills and the capacity to develop resiliency and move forward, so they're not just academically successful, but also personally well now and in their future. So, we welcome the questions, we welcome the insights, so that we can continue to move forward in a positive direction together, with parents as partners and our community collaborating and empowering students to help take the lead and support one another. So thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Mike Albanese, and I'm with the Burbank Police Department. I'm here with the Chief of Police, Scott LaChance. I'm here with our mental evaluation team, our MET team. I'm here with our sergeant from juvenile, our school resource officer, and a supervisor from the Department of Mental Health. So we are here to share with you any information or questions that you would have about anything. But I will say this. I believe there's not a person in this room that doesn't have a relative, a friend of a friend, an acquaintance who has not experienced some type of personal crisis, trauma, had a mental health episode. I believe that there is a commonality for all of us here, that we know someone that has experienced that. So this is the forum that will introduce us to additional resources, help us recognize some of the symptomology, so we know what to do when we see those indicators. So the police department has a boatload of resources here for you, in addition to everybody else. I remind folks that the police department, we're open 24/7. We never close. So the numbers you have, understand that we're available. Thank you.
I want to thank all the panelists for the overview and the introduction. I know we've had some individuals come in after my opening remarks about logistics, so I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page. There are some seats up front if you want a front row seat. If you came in late, you can get that, and there's some seats on the side. So if you have a seat and you see someone coming down the aisle, wave them in if you want to have a seat. I started the evening saying that this is a continuation of conversations we had. For example, we had on Cinco de Mayo on May 5th, we had a wellness symposium with Senator Portantino, who gave a keynote address and shared about some resources for the district. We've had a series of events. But again, it's not enough. And tonight, I don't want anyone to leave tonight feeling like, I didn't get my question answered, it's not enough. I'm looking at the stack of cards. We would be here a very long time tonight if we answered every single one, so I don't think we'll get to it. I think the group's trying to get it into themes that we can talk about. But tonight, I am very heartened by the outpouring of people that came out tonight. It means we need to have these conversations. We need to continue these conversations. And so again, I want to remind everyone, make sure on the way out, you definitely grab a copy of the agenda. It was also emailed. We'll make sure it's on our Facebook site. There are links embedded in there for additional resources. We spoke about the resources, but you're going to probably need to go back to those at another time and share those resources. So that's one key thing. The second is a reminder on Monday evening at the John Burroughs High School, we're going to have an open house at the Wellness Center, which you enter off the Keystone. So Lori Blake and myself will be there, and we'll be there to have conversations. So it'll be a smaller, more intimate setting to have those dialogues. And then the next, I just want to make sure, or two things. If you have a personal need right now that you want to talk with somebody from the Family Service Agency of Burbank about care for yourself, care for your child, you really need help in this moment. If you go back to the back of the room where you came in, the desk, there is someone from Burbank Family Service Agency that they're a therapist that can speak with you now. I don't want you to feel you have to wait if you have a personal question that you want to address, you can speak to them and they would take you to a private setting if you would like. And then finally, make sure you have your cards. They're going around, continue, fill them out, ask questions, have a contact information if you want to follow up. What we're going to do, if we don't address all the questions this evening, we will present or create a frequently asked question, and we'll put it on our website, and we'll work with our partners to disseminate that as well. With that, I'd like to start having questions come down so that we can address as many as we can. And again, if you want to grab a seat, or there are still a couple more in the audience. The first one, so it looks like we'll be here quite a while, which is actually a good thing, but I appreciate it. These are the topics we need to, I don't know what the questions say, but I already appreciate the questions, just the volume of them and things we need to talk about. The first one I got when I handed in, so they're the first one that gets it. And I'll read the questions and kind of give a heads up to the person so that they know it's coming their way. The first one, Tammy, it's going to be around special education. So how involved is the district with children under 504s? 504 is accommodations that students may receive based on health needs, or an IEP, which is an individual education plan, and the difference between both. So what is the district's role with those two types of documents? So if a student has identified special needs, they can be put on either the 504 plan, or they can be put on the IEP, the individual educational plan.
Okay, so I'm sorry, the question was, what is the difference between the two and how involved is the district with them? Okay. Well, the district is very involved with both of those. So I'll talk about the difference first. So Section 504 plan is Section 504 under the American with Disabilities Act. It's a federal law that applies to all sorts of, any agency that receives any kind of government and federal funding has to follow that law, and a school district is one of those agencies that has to follow it. It requires an organization to provide reasonable accommodations to somebody that has a disability. And so any student that's identified as having a disability may be eligible for a 504 plan to have accommodations if they need accommodations in order to access their education. Right now, the 504 students on 504 plans are overseen by our Student Services Department at individual school sites. It varies who may oversee those. Guidance counselors at the elementary school, it's usually the principal. And so the difference is that 504 plans provide just accommodations, things like, just as an example, extended time to complete assignments, repeated directions, things like that, or even for physical disabilities. It's the law that requires us to have things like wheelchair ramps and those kinds of things, so that students can have equal access to their education. An IEP, an individualized education plan or program, is for students whose disabilities are such that they require special education supports and services in order to access their education. This is different, and it requires an assessment, a multidisciplinary team assessment to determine, one, if the student has a disability, and two, if the disability is such that they require special education services in order to access their education. And it's very, very specific. I could talk forever, so I'll just try to be brief, because as Director of Special Education, I could talk all night about special education. So let me just summarize this. Basically, there's 14 disability categories under this federal law, and students are assessed, and if they're found eligible for an IEP under one of these eligibility categories, then this individual plan with goals and individual services is developed to support that student so that they can access their education. And we have an entire department that just exists to provide support to these students. So we're very, very involved in successfully supporting these students to ensure success for all of them.
Thank you, Tammy.
Follow-up question. Would that also include twice exceptional students?
It may, yes.
So the next group I have relate to FSA or the Wellness Center. So the first question is the Family Service Agency or FSA open to teachers in the district? Yeah. I'll read it. So is FSA available for teachers? And what is being done to support the mental health of our teachers? And I would say that as the district, we are able to refer teachers through our health provider to the Employee Assistance Program that has therapists available for our employees. And then specifically for FSA, I'll let the team at FSA.
So the wellness care centers were developed for students. It's a therapeutic environment for them to, during the day, if needed, to decompress, to meet with somebody situationally, or to get some psychoeducational interventions. It is a drop-in center for the students. It is also a center for them to be able to refer themselves to counseling. As these young ladies were pointing out, that it's so important for the students to be able to advocate for themselves. And so these centers are for the students. They're not for the teachers.
And then I think we can share about with the FSA office if parents or staff, they want to seek services through FSA, what's the process?
So if adults outside of the wellness care centers are looking for services for their students or for themselves, the agency provides counseling services for individuals starting from age 4, even younger, all the way up to 100. But we provide services for individuals, couples, teens, children, and families. So if teachers are looking for counseling services, they can always come through the agency in that regard.
The next question, I think it's helpful to kind of clarify what's provided at the Wellness Center. I'll read the question in a second. So the question talks about when kids are treated at the Wellness Center, how can families, teachers, counselors be able to continue with the treatment plan? Hospitals have multidisciplinary plans for each patient. Can the Wellness Center do something like this without jeopardizing privacy? So I'll take a first answer at this, and then if you can help fill it in and correct me if I misspeak on anything. One, about the Wellness Center, as Ginny said, this is a drop-in center for students to be able to de-stress, get resources, get referred for additional therapy centers, therapeutic sessions are not happening ongoing. So that's one clarifying point I wanted to make about what is the purpose of the Wellness Center. They can be referred to a therapist and continue with therapy sessions there. The second part of the conversation of sharing of information between the school district and the family service agency about a student's needs. And that's something that I know Lori and I have been having with the team of what can we share, what can't we share. And so there's privacy laws on both sides of the equation. But one thing we're focused on and we want to continue to work on is getting those release statements for parents so that we can share information more freely. But without signed release statements, it's something that there will be a wall there. But if we do have agreements on confidentiality and what we can share, what we can't share, we'll do that. Question I got via email earlier in the week is around if we have divorced parents with custody, then each parent needs to sign that. Those are protections that we have to follow, given students under the age of 18 about how we do that protection. But it's something that we have a willingness to look into, and as we build and strengthen this partnership, we want to see if we can streamline it. But I'll be candid, I believe that in the protection of confidentiality and privacy, sometimes that slows down care. And not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just a reality, and if there's ways to streamline it, I know both agencies, organizations are looking into that. Anything I misspoke about or didn't cover?
No, other than if a student isn't one of our clients and they are hospitalized, we would certainly want them to be referred for the aftercare to us so that we can care for the children, which in sense would then partner with the schools so that we are doing the aftercare care for the student and for the family. And again, we do need to have releases so that we can coordinate services. Some parents want that and others don't.
The next question is about how do you communicate or market the service to students? How do you destigmatize going to the wellness centers? I know our students talked about in the beginning. I'd like you to elaborate more. This is something the survey results have shown me that we have to do a much better job of. I would just say the wellness centers specifically, it just opened up at John Burroughs this year, so it's a new opportunity for students, and Burbank High is this is in end of year 2, so they are new, but I want to hear directly from the students about your opinions or thoughts of, is it still a stigma from students to go seek help? And then the second is, what should we be doing?
So, wait, is there still a stigma, and what should we be doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you talk to your friends, colleagues, classmates, is there a stigma out there trying to ask for help? And then second, is it, or let's start with that one and we'll get to that.
Okay. So is there stigma? I would say there is a stigma, but it's not how you would characterize stigma. It's just kind of a feeling that's there among the student body. So in order to try and fight that stigma would be, for us, like what we're trying to do is just be more open to communication and to speaking about it. I think also that because it's in its first year and it's, barely being born on John Burroughs campus, there's not necessarily much awareness as to where it is or what does it do. And so it's kind of a separate entity from school. And in order, at least our role as a coalition, we want to be able to facilitate more conversation, which provides like, oh, hey, did you guys go to the wellness center because you were really stressed on this test? Or hey, do we need help because there's family relations going on that are kind of messing me up? It's more of being able to have open conversation that facilitates where it's easy. It's not something that's stuck. Right now in our campus and as teenagers, we're in this kind of weird, icky stick place with that we're trying to work through. So yes, stigma, but not in the sense that it's like, oh, I'm not going to go to the wellness center. Just, don't really know what it is, kind of uncomfortable, but yeah.
We would also like to say that we held this student-run assembly with the presidents of the district, and it was called Real Talk, and it was a way for students to talk about mental health. And I don't think it's, like Valeria said, there's a stigma about talking about it because we all know that something's going on and like we all feel it. Yeah, we all feel it. But it's just a matter of, will it be validated enough? Will people take it seriously? So that's the fear of going to the wellness center and honestly going to a counselor, because I was told that students have a fear, oh, if I go to a counselor and I say I'm having problems and I feel depressed, they will automatically think I'm suicidal, and they will automatically just like put me in a place where I'm not meant to be. I just need help. And I think we just need more support in knowing that it's not, how would I put it? It's not a bad thing to feel the presence. It's just we need support from different programs how to deal with it and not be automatically put into a place where, oh, they're suicidal.
I'd like to add on to that. For me personally, I've gone to the wellness center at my school throughout my 4 years in high school, and yes, there is a stigma associated with that. I would receive judgment from a lot of my friends, but I was being selfish, and I said, you know what, I honestly don't care what other people think of me, because my mental health is more important than what other people perceive me to be as. And I feel like the number one thing we as a society can do to decrease stigma is education. So more panels like this, educating people about what mental health is. Mental health is just as, and if not even more important than physical health. People talk about, for example, if someone is diagnosed with cancer or has a chronic disease, yes, like we do have sympathy for that person, but if a friend comes up to you and say, hey, I was diagnosed with depression, we as a society, we often wouldn't know how to help that person. And I feel like that with more education and more knowledge about mental health and doing more things like this, we can decrease the stigma. And in my school specifically, I feel that the wellness center is advocated a lot. A lot of the time, sometimes teachers, they come up to students and they say, do you need to go to the wellness center? So if they like recognize behavior patterns among students. So I think that it is a great first step in awareness for mental health, but there are still some things that are needed to be done. Maybe more education throughout the student body about what mental health is, because the more students that are receiving help, the better that it will be overall. And mental health is it's such an important topic in society, especially now. And I think that more students taking initiative for their mental health is very important in decreasing the stigma, because the more students that go to the wellness center and say, hey, I went to the wellness center and they helped me a lot, more students will start to like coalesce and work together and just realize that, you know, maybe the wellness center is a good resource, and it is, but we just as a society need to realize that.
I'm going to stay with you. So the next one is around how can, they talk about care student resource, consider having a 24 advice hotline. I would advocate that there are hotlines available. And so how can CARE help promote the resources that are there with therapists available?
So the district offers a hotline, as does, there are a lot of other outside resources that are hotlines like Teen Line. And so as CARE, as our coalition, that's a part of kind of what mental health advocates would be doing. We'd be knowing like everything on what are the outside resources that people can look at, teen line, hotlines of suicide, bullying, you know, harassment. There's a bunch of hotlines out there, and it would be, in order for us to facilitate that sort of conversation and for all students to know, it would be like our duty to know it all and then transfer it outwards. And there are a bunch of, you know, hotlines and teen lines provided by the district.
Also, with the new website that we want to start up, we would have hotlines on that, and they would be researched by FSA and us, like, to see how effective they are, and so that they could be available to students, checked by students, to give students a better guide to where to find help, also as well as social media. We know that that's a huge, social media plays a huge role in our lives and in communication within our society and our generation. So we would use social media as a way to integrate those hotlines in our social media pages.
And on the agenda as well, under the Director of Wellness part of the agenda, we put a link directly to some of these hotlines and resources. Les provided some of them in the back. And so if we can, as you leave this evening, if you haven't, grab those resources. I wanted Ginny to also talk about FSA, the hours of when you can call, and some of those resources.
Well, we have the 24-hour line. If we're not at the agency, which we are there 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then open on Saturday, we do have a center that will take messages, and then there are some, all of the directors are on that message center's hotline, and they will call one of us if it's on the weekend or late hours, if there is a crisis, or if somebody needs to talk, if they need some direction or whatever, students having a meltdown. But we're always available to be contacted by this answering service. So I would say that we are 24-hour. We may not always be on campus 24 hours, but we are always available.
I'm going to stay on the theme of resources and hotlines, and the broader topic that I'm seeing here is, what do we do for the students that don't advocate for themselves and the parents that may not have the resources? I'll have the students start about it, because based on the surveys we've done, students see things, they hear things, and how do you help advocate for someone that may not want to advocate for themselves? And this is probably going to open up to a longer discussion, but I think I'm seeing a common theme of this question. And the rest of the panel, what can we do as organizations to help parents as well as help students get the resources? And then I'll start there.
Okay. Well, what can we do for students who don't advocate for themselves is we make them feel as though they are not alone. We make, as Mira said, education about mental health more aware, and we hold events such as the Real Talk Assembly where students share common ground, and they let each other know that, yes, I feel this too, and this is how we can help ourselves. And along with that, we can take initiative into taking the tools that the district provides or that CARE provides, and pushing those tools to different kids, that kid sitting in the corner not talking, but make sure that they're listening to the different resources that they could reach to find help.
Yeah, so I think it's hard to attempt to connect to one kid who might be disconnected from the entire community if the entire community is disconnected. So like Nicole was saying, if we're able to facilitate conversation and spread the word of mental health and have mental health awareness and well-being not be so scary and spoken about on a level that's natural, it's easier to communicate and have those silent listeners hear and absorb the, the resources and what's being said. with Real Talk, what we had wanted to do was we wanted to host Real Talk, like symposiums in the Wellness Center, to be able to facilitate more conversation and visits to the Wellness Center, but B, in this Real Talk, it would be students being able to speak about their emotions and to talk and to not feel as isolated and alone, as well as, you know, there'd be therapists there, yeah, safety, but to have conversations where students are able to hear other students. It's not it's not being alone, but it's a feeling of loneliness. So in order to prevent that feeling of loneliness, it's being able to talk across the board on wellness and mental health and well-being and speak on resources and free conversation, not one that's necessarily restricted. And I think there was a part where parents come into play? Or what was it?
Yeah. What about
the parents who...
child is asking for help and maybe the parent doesn't feel support, and that's going to be for all of us, but
Yeah.
if there's
I would say that's kind of what the CARE Coalition wants to do. We want to be the peers. We want to be your friend. We don't want to be isolated students of scary sharks that are like, oh, we have all these resources, yet we're not going to do anything about it. No, we want to be able, as peers, as friends, as mentors, as advocates, as acquaintances, as a person like 2 people removed, be able to still talk and connect with all of our student body, where maybe if you can't talk to your parent, as a mental health advocate, you can have your friend ask the mental health advocate, hey, I have a friend who's kind of suffering this, like what resources can we provide? And we'd come out and be like, oh, Teen Line, hey, FSA can refer to you therapists outside of school, therapists all across the country, why not? You know, a variety of resources where it's not just one person has everything that isn't being said, but multiple people have the information to be spread around.
One of my teachers once told me this year, you are born into a family, but that doesn't determine who you are as a person. A family is not only what you're born into, but it's who you create as well. And oftentimes the family that you create can be more helpful, and that's what I think my peers and I are talking about and what we're advocating. We're trying to advocate for a community, a network of students that are all here together. An important concept to know, especially in mental health, is that you are not alone. And even if you do feel alone, you do have a support system. And through school, some things that can be done are having informational assemblies, maybe from speakers that have suffered mental health issues themselves, or even, like my peer said, just having an assembly where the students can talk to each other and share what they're going through. Because more often than not, you would be surprised to find out that your friend can be suffering from the same or similar things that you are suffering from. And I feel like, again, with just education and knowledge about mental health, it can provide a support system to students that are feeling alone. And especially with us being mental health advocates, one step that we can take is if we notice a kid at school that seems rather isolated, like we can go up to them and ask them. You never really know what a person is going through until you ask them and you get to know them. So us being mental health advocates, we can take the first step and reach out to them, and hopefully this behavior can spread throughout school. So everyone is caring for each other and providing a support system for each other, because the more people you have supporting you, the better it makes you feel as an individual, and it kind of reinstates that you are not alone and that there is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel. It does get better. And also with help from people from the district, that just like reinforcing the importance of talking about mental health, maybe having more assemblies at school for mental health can be very beneficial, just for that general awareness. But the family that you create outside of the one that you're born into, it can help a lot. And it all just starts with the first step of reaching out and just caring for others in a way that they might not get at home.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the advocacy. As you guys know, students know more than adults oftentimes, but we have had students that have used the wellness care centers that have experienced the environment and the help that they personally receive, that have advocated for their friends who have not visited the center, and we were able to meet with those friends and kind of give them a sense of what counseling is and what the center is like. And it's funny because if we can get rid of the stigma with the students and with adults, if teachers can advocate for their students that they know of that are having problems in class, such as the young lady down at the end of the table had said, teachers are referring them to the centers, then we can at that point in time give them an experience, which we've had, and ask them, would you like some individual counseling? It looks like you might benefit from that. And they're like, well, I don't know, what's it like? And we say, it's like this, and they're like, oh, sign me up, you know? So students are referring their friends, and we're diminishing the stigma by just doing what we do. And if teachers will, in themselves, drop the stigma, maybe they would be referring students more.
Anyone else on the panel want to jump in on this question?
I would. You know, for anyone in the audience or anyone who's listening at home, I want to make sure you heard exactly what folks have said here. You are not alone. And it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to be unsure, and it's okay to ask for help. And everybody on this panel is willing to help. And at all of the schools in our district, you can click on mental health and wellness on any school webpage or our district webpage. And whether it's an adult seeking support for your own child, or if it's a student seeking help for yourself or your friends or someone in your family, we have helplines that are 24/7. The phone numbers of FSA and the Burbank PD Met team and all of our colleagues who are here to help you are available just by going to the website. And after meeting with Valeria and Nicole, we said, you're right, kids don't always go to the website. Going to a website now is becoming a little outmoded. So we added an app. So on the district app, all of those helplines are right in the palm of your hand. So you can download the district app, and all of those helplines are right in the palm of your hand. So there are so many people here who want to help and be available to you. And it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be uncertain. All of us who are at this table, we've been at that point, some point in our life. So reach out to a student, reach out to an adult. The resources are available. And for the adults who are listening in the room, you just have to Google Burbank USD Caring Schools, and it will take you to all of those resources.
Thank you. The next couple of questions I believe we've touched on. There's encouragement for us to do more mandatory assemblies. If we do lunchtime presentations or evening presentations, students don't always come. So it's more about student assemblies, and we heard that from the students, and what staff I want us to do, and with our partners of let's find out what's the best way to get the information to the students. If they want it, we just need to make sure we connect through that. This is more of a comment, but I think it's important around how do we help students of, if you see something, say something is a key thing, and this card's an example of something that worked. I had a friend whose child was being cyberbullied. A Burbank Police Department officer had a discussion with the child doing the bullying, and the action quickly ceased. It's an opportunity. That's why we have a strong partnership with the city and the police. There's another comment in here around the school resource officers. In the past, the city and the district had more of those that scaled down to one, but the advocacy of the city, the police department, the school district, we now have two in our community, and we have the Burbank Police Department and the mental health evaluation team. That it's better to reach out to us and to them and let them determine if there needs to be a home visit or there needs to be an assessment. So Mike, can you talk a little more about what that process is with the MET team, the mental health evaluation team, or if you get a tip around cyberbullying or someone that has a question about how prevalent is cutting in our community, or what do we do if we see someone that's cutting?
So those, there are multiple questions there, and I'm going to defer the cyberbullying to Sergeant Steve Turner, and he's going to step up to the center. It's called delegating, by the way, and it's very effective.
I did it to you, so.
And then Jeffrey, if you can be on deck as far as just the process of MET, on or off campus, and just be advised on the MET team, it's a citywide resource. It's not specific to the school district. We service the entire city, and the schools are part of our city, but it's a citywide resource.
So specifically with cyberbullying, I know I've talked about it before, going back a few years with the advent of all the new social networking sites and the obviously everyone in possession of a cell phone now. I don't want to sum it up as best I can as far as the problem. When we were kids, the bullying took place on the playground. It might have taken place after school. What our kids have to deal with now is bullying 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? In all kinds of formats, and we can sit and discuss, you know, setting up fake pages, just the constant bullying on texting, whatever it is. We become aware of cyberbullying either through family, friends, like the kids are talking up here. We've often had, hey, you know, I think my friend's in crisis, they're having an issue, they're getting bullied, they're getting picked on. And we work with our school partners, and obviously there's criminal codes that may come in play, there's education codes that may come in play, but each situation is unique, and we try to come up with the best solution there is. Oftentimes, like was said before, just reaching out and talking to the other kids, maybe the bullier, you know, the bully rather, sometimes that, more often than not, that puts it to a stop. You know, we're aware of it, knock it off. But again, we have to become aware of it, be told of it, and we definitely reach out. And if, again, with all these resources that we have, including our MET team, we use whatever channel is proper that we see fit for that particular situation.
Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Hand it off to Jeffrey. Hand it off.
My name is Jeff Snowden. I'm currently assigned to the mental health evaluation team at the police department. To kind of piggyback on what Sergeant Turner stated, we have a very close working relationship with our juvenile bureau as well as the school district. The typical fashion in which we get involved with a juvenile call at a school would be a counselor places a call to the police department requesting that the MET team respond to conduct an assessment. During that assessment, it's our job to determine, one, is this child safe? And if they're not safe, what's the best course of action to make sure that they are safe? Sometimes that involves involuntary hospitalization. Sometimes it involves developing a safety plan with a parent or a guardian. Sometimes it goes further than that, and sometimes we have to work in conjunction with our juvenile bureau to take a little bit more of a detailed approach to make sure that somebody's safe. But it's important to know that our goal when we show up at a school is not, and to touch on her point earlier, you know, our goal is not to just look at a child and make an assumption that they need to go to the hospital. That's not what our goal is. Our goal is to help. And so that help can come in many different forms. And our job is to ask the questions that maybe some other people haven't had the opportunity to ask or don't want to ask, or develop a rapport with that child so they feel comfortable explaining what the situation is so that we can make the right decision. It's also important to note that whenever we show up, we have the ability to take our time, whereas patrol doesn't always, it's a little bit more difficult because there's many other calls in the city that require their services, but we have the opportunity to take our time and really try to dig and figure out what's the best resolution for this particular situation. So currently we have, as the Deputy Chief mentioned earlier, it's myself along with the DMH clinician. We're available Tuesday through Friday from 10 to 8. We also have a third team member that is there additional day on Mondays. If for some reason you have a response by the Burbank Police Department to your home or to the school and you're referred to contact us as a resource, please feel free to do that because we will get back to you. Over the 2 years that I've been involved with Met Team, in addition to the prior 4 years, our program has gone from simply responding to crisis calls to now conducting what we would like to describe as case management. So if we notice particular individuals are being contacted more frequently or the situations they're being contacted in are a little bit more dangerous and require more of an immediate response, we will follow up. We will meet with the parents. We will work with the family to ensure that we can get them connected to the resources that they think they need. So in short, you know, we're there for the community. We respond to all types of calls. Our number is available to everybody in the community at all times. And you know, obviously there's only 2 of us, so it may take some time to get to you, but we will get to you.
So I have one here that I think really needs to be addressed. I want to read it to you. It says, I can't help but feel that the counselor's statements on cell phones and social media dangerously oversimplify the causes of our students' mental health concerns. I would ask that more deference be given to those issues in order to keep from further stigmatization. Fear that parents and students will be less likely to seek help if they are forced to believe they are at fault. If what I said caused anyone to feel blame, that wasn't my intention. I just wanted to quote some of the things that are being discussed in the literature now. It is a simplification, and things go deeper than that, but it's not, my intention is not to blame parents at all. What's happening in schools now is a brand new phenomena, and I don't think we can, it doesn't help to blame in any kind of situation like this, but this is a problem that we have to solve in partnership, and there's no blame on this. We need to develop a partnership between parents, students, and school staff to try to work this through. It's just begun to be studied by researchers and professionals. It's not even a phenomenon that's just occurring in the United States. I just read something written by social scientists in Great Britain. I mean, this is something that's happening all over the world, and so we need to work together to solve it. And I apologize if it seemed that I was conveying blame. So thanks for that question.
I'm trying to summarize this one. This is I think it's an important one. It's apparent let me work on, does anyone have a question? I'm going to try to protect confidentiality, but the way this topic is important. Does anyone have a question that they want to address while I try to do that?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
This question was, what other resources are available? For example, are there any faith-based resources? So the district has a mental health and wellness plan, and there's a committee, some of the committee members are here for the Mental Emotional Wellbeing Committee that helps to oversee and provide guidance for the work that my department does to do this. And one of the components that that committee identified as important is to recognize that some people will find value personally to seeking out clinical care. Other people will find value personally for finding support from pastoral care. So within our community, we've been reaching out to our faith-based partners here in Burbank. And as Matt had said, we had a wellness symposium on May 5th, and our faith-based partners did a session on pastoral care. So we recognize that the issues that present themselves in all human life are multifaceted. And some people will do very, very well with clinical care, and it's really important to provide that. Some people will respond to pastoral care, and that's part of what the committee and the plan wants us to do. And we continue to link people to those resources in our community as part of the Burbank Ministerial Association. And for any of you who want to join those committees, they are open to parents, community members, students, age appropriately, of course. And again, you can just go to our website, learn more about that. You can learn more about our mental health and wellness plan for the district. That's on our website as well, as are the surveys we've talked about. So we continue to make sure that we're trying to reach out and provide information that's accessible. And right now our primary vehicles are the website and the app and face-to-face and forums like this. But any other additional supports that you feel as though we should be providing in terms of connecting the resources, just let us know, and we'll get that in that one website, so it's a one-stop place that you can go for all of our partners here, community partners, for helplines, whatever might be needed. But yes, part of that mental health and wellness plan does include making sure that we help people find pastoral care in our community as well.
Thank you, Johanna. I received a couple cards that, again, I just want to remind, if you're struggling and you need help with your child and you want resources, we do have therapists that can talk to you about your specific situation this evening. So if you go in the back, Lori's back there, and there's other FSA, we have rooms set up. But I want to generalize these couple of cards because I think it's helpful, and see if George and Ginny can maybe give some advice. It's broader advice rather than specific advice of what if parents have children that they notice are becoming more recluse or going to be alone. They don't want to talk to mom or dad. They don't feel like they understand them. They don't get them, and they're just worried. They know they need help, but they don't know what that first step is. How do they engage their child to get the support? What suggestions do you have to start that conversation at home so that they can get connected to therapy?
Well, actually we're doing it here. For a lot of the students, that is exactly the experience. They don't know really where to start. The Wellness Center is actually that opportunity to come to a safe place, a place that's not intimidating. It doesn't have what most people would consider the typical look or feel of a mental health agency, where you go in, you sit in a room, there's a person across from you, you've met that person for the first time, you start talking about very personal things. The Wellness Center gives them a platform to kind of, they have the ability to manage and to build the trust of, I don't know what this is, but let me see if I can test it out. And the Wellness Center is what that opportunity for them. So our counselors make themselves very available. Some students come in, they open up very freely. Some students, they walk in and they say, we want to sit and we want to be about ourselves and just kind of gather our thoughts. and we respect either approach. On the other hand, we don't just leave them alone. We check in with them as frequently as we think is needed. The ultimate objective is to get them to feel comfortable, feel like this is a trusting experience, feel that we're there for the right purpose. And that's what we train our counselors to really, what's the foundation of therapy? Being that trusting adult who has professional skills, and yet people feel comfortable with them. So as we're talking to the students, our objective is to get them to hopefully open up as much as they're willing, and then we start to sort out what are the other needs that might be happening. And then through that process, we start kind of selecting students to send home permission slips, consent forms to parents, introductory letters about our agency, and then invite the parents to come down to the agency and have another conversation. Of course, this is all, we have to do this. It's a very delicate balance, but that's the process of building that relationship with the parents again. And, that's where the skill comes in. How do we invite them in? How does the student continue to feel safe? And how do we start opening up dialogue? The whole process starts with just asking the questions. And, I believe over the years, parents have been very appreciative of that. We're all, life can be very stressful. People get distracted. This is an opportunity to get grounded and focused back on what are my needs. And adolescence, is a time of a lot of challenges. They don't always know what those needs are. And the ability to come in and share that with somebody, get constructive feedback, I think it opens the process for them.
Can we have Mira talk about it?
Absolutely.
Like I've said before, the family you do create outside of the one you're born into, it can help a lot. The first step about realizing that there is a problem is just realizing that you need help. And sometimes parents might not be able to understand what you're going through, and that's okay. I understand that a lot of parents out there have concern about their children, them not opening up to them, and I've experienced this with myself personally. Hi, Mom. For me, the first step was realizing that, I need help. And after realizing I needed help, I did go to the wellness center, and sometimes when I would receive support from them, but it just wasn't enough. So I had to find my own family through school. I would sometimes talk to my teachers. I would keep it very professional, but a lot of times, one teacher in specific, he gave me a lot of advice and support throughout the year. Teachers are there for you. They are not just there to teach, they're also there just as human beings to support and love and care for you. And one of my teachers says, for the 56 minutes that you guys are in my class, you're like my kids. And I feel like that this theme needs to be established more throughout school, because teachers are not just there to teach. Teachers are not just there to teach, they're there for you, as also to help with anything. So when you realize that you want support, yes, you can. It is great to have support outside of your family by asking teachers for help, or maybe going to the wellness center or talking to your counselor. But at the end of the day, I feel like that family is very important in establishing that just connection and trust with your family. Because although you may open up to a teacher and establish a very close relationship with them throughout the year, at the end of the day, you're coming home to your mom and your dad and your brother or your sister. They are your main support system, and they will be nurturing you in life. And I feel like with the Wellness Center especially, if you open up to them and you say that I'm having trouble communicating with my parents, they can arrange to have like a family therapy session, and it does help. It's just all about increasing awareness and taking the first step to realize that you do need support. And although your family may not understand exactly what you're going through, they want to help and they love you and they care about you. And sometimes for parents out there, sometimes it's not always about finding the solution to a problem. It's just about, being there for your kid. Whether it's just sitting next to them and putting an arm around their shoulder, or just saying I love you, or just taking them out to dinner. You don't always have to find a solution to a problem. Sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, you know what, my kid really needs me to just cuddle them and nurture them right now. So, yeah.
Do you want to go? No. Oh, okay. I was going to build on that topic because I received a couple cards of district's not doing enough. The district only cares about protecting themselves from a lawsuit. We receive information. We do nothing about that. And I've seen those types of comments and posts, and I want to address it directly. I think every single organization that's represented on this panel, every individual, definitely the organizations, we have an ethical, a moral, and a legal responsibility to act on information that we receive. And I know out there people say, well, you got information, you didn't do anything, and this is why this happened. It doesn't happen that way. And I know with a lack of our ability to share specifics about how we work with individuals and students creates a void that's filled with misinformation. As the leader of one of the organizations, and I know all of us would say the same thing of, we do act. This is a complicated topic, and I know when things happen, it breaks trust in a community and among students, among parents, and it can be just an interaction where someone went to get help and that individual was too busy and brushed that individual off, and so they didn't get help again, or someone followed up. But I want to say on the serious actions, we do, and we follow up, and it's complex. And I think, again, I started off, I'm very concerned when people spread information on social media or sidewalk conversations where they think they know what exactly happened, and unless you're that individual, you have no idea. No idea at all. And what spreads from that is a culture and a belief that people can't get help. And I am one of the few individuals, there's others in this room, that get a lot of information about specific incidents, but we still don't even have all the information because we're not that individual, we're not that family. And I don't want to be sounding like, I feel like I'm preaching to everyone. But I think it's important, though, for us to be very clear of none of us do this work trying to endanger a child and not do our best. And we will do that, and we'll continue to make those connections. What we need to do as a community is have stories like this. When did it work well? Your story is very powerful because you had some challenges and it worked well. Each of the students have shared that. What I see the theme of, when those relationships are broken because of an experience, we need to hear about that. So there's some specific questions I've had in here where it did not work. It's very clear, BUSD did not work for my child. We need to hear about that. And if you've talked to the teacher, the principal, or counselor, keep escalating. I want to hear about it. I've had some very heartfelt and thoughtful emails and conversations, and we want to continue that. So you have a district that's willing to listen, improve, and expand upon. You have partners here that do that. But when I receive cards that says, everyone did nothing, that's not accurate, and you don't know. People do a lot. But the connection of how do you help, and there's other concerns about, well, students may launch a program, they're not trained, they're not experts, they're going to get into dangerous waters. Counselors, they're not qualified to do therapy. Superintendent doesn't have an education background. What the heck's he talking about? The director is not a psychologist of wellness. So I think we need to be very clear about the credentials each of us hold, and we know our limitations. We also know our skill sets and what our roles are. I think we need to do a better job as organizations to explain our roles and how we are a network that works together. So some counselors that we have in the district are purely academic counselors. But they are trained, all of our employees are trained in suicide prevention. So we now go through an annual training on suicide prevention. So we see signs that will trigger us to refer for additional services. If we feel that through one of those conversations that a child or an adult's in immediate danger, that's when we call the Burbank Police Department to do an assessment. They are trained for that next level. So I wanted to make sure I'm clear about there's not one role an individual in the district that is going to sit down and do full-on therapy for a student. We are trained to connect to resources. We got to do more of that. We got to do more of the training and professional development so that we're all aware of signs of stress, distress, and how to connect to those resources. And we can embed it in the curriculum in our schools. And we also need to know when we need to refer it when it's not in our skill set or our job description. So we constantly are working on that. What I'm getting from the questions, which is very good feedback of we need to be clear about what our roles are and what we do and what we don't do. And if we don't do something, who do we connect it to? So I appreciate that level of question. Is there someone else have a question in front of them they want to address, or I'll go?
Okay, so this is sort of along the similar lines, but a little bit off onto I think, the special education area, which is, the question is, how do you evaluate that a student needs help? I think that Dr. Hill just touched on that in terms of the immediate risk, so I'm not sure if this question is like an immediate help in the moment or help in general. So there is that threat assessments that are done if a student is thought for any reason to be deemed at risk of harm to themselves or others, and at that point the MET team or the police are called to do those assessments. How do we evaluate a student needs help sort of more globally needs help? That's done a variety of ways. So one way is, anybody can make a referral for a student, can refer a student to go for counseling. We have, FSA provides counseling to all of our students, any student, not all of our students, to any student who might need it at all of our schools. And so anybody on campus can make a referral to those services. When a student appears to be struggling, to their family or to staff, a referral can be made to, we have something called the Student Success Team. We call it SST for short. And that's a team that meets to talk with the family, with you, to talk about your child. And some of you may have been at one of these, to talk about the student and, what their strengths are, what's going on with them, what their needs may be. And a decision might be made that a referral for a full assessment, a full evaluation of those students' strengths and needs should be done. And at that point, we have a whole team of specialists that actually do direct assessment with the student. And the team includes always a school psychologist and a special education teacher. And there's specific assessment tools that they use to help determine what might be going on with a child to see why they're struggling. And there's also other professionals that might be a part of that team on an as-needed basis, but at a minimum it always includes the school psychologist and a special education teacher. And referrals for that assessment can come a variety of ways. Sometimes they come out of that student success team process. Sometimes they come out of a parent bringing it to the attention of the school staff that they feel their child needs that assessment. And that assessment then helps determine if that's what kind of help that student might need. Do they need an IEP, an individualized education program in order to access their education, or do they need counseling or psychotherapeutic supports outside of school, and referrals and connection to resources are made. So I hope I sort of answered that question.
There's a specific question about resource hotline numbers being added to the back of middle and high school student IDs. Actually, Senator Anthony Portantino actually has a bill proposing that. So that's something, even without the bill, we want to look at as a district. What would it take to do that? Because I think it's a great idea. How do we have that? And even there's another question about how do you have these cards given to students? It's not back on their student ID. How do you give these cards to students day one, part of orientation? So I think that is a great suggestion. There's also questions around second step and then anti-bullying in middle school. We're not using second step in middle school. So our middle schools do have different approaches right now that they are addressing these topics. It is something that we constantly look at each year about what are the programs and so second step is at the elementary school level. It's a program or curriculum that we use to talk about positive behavior, how to interact with your classmates and peers, and so we look at each of our grade levels. What are the appropriate supports? And along this line I see around questions about health in 9th grade. I do want to highlight this because it's a shout out for our health program. We have switched curriculum. Get focused, stay focused. It's embedded in our health class in 9th grade. And it's an amazing program that really exposes our students to these topics, how to have the supports. The question was, well, how do we integrate this more in middle school and elementary? And so that's something we are looking at as well around building awareness of students, age appropriate, of course, but looking at these types of resources. Next one is going to be another forum, I think. It's something the PTA and PTSA have started this. Screens, cell phones, Les talked about it. It's a topic we need to discuss. I mean, as a parent, we grew up where we adopted technology, and as students are born as digital natives. So the PTA did a screening of a movie called Screenagers that highlights a lot of these topics. They're going to do it again in the fall, I believe. October. Do you have a date? Or just October? October. Yeah. So this is a lovely, so we'll work with you on a facility. But what I loved about the movie is I didn't agree with everything in the movie, but as a parent and superintendent, but it raised awareness and made me think about how my children are being raised in this and how the children of Burbank and the school district. So it's a thought-provoking piece and it's connected to resources. And we heard from the students that we need to have the conversation. So there's debates about one of the cards in here talks about why don't you ban cell phones from students in class? Interesting question. I may flip it back on the parent, as being a parent myself. Why do you allow your child to have a cell phone? And if you don't, then the question is, we got friends that are bringing it. So it's not simple. So we got to think about it from multiple points of view. I may ban my children from screens, but then they're going to go to school and they're going to be exposed to the child next to them that has one. And so are we parenting that other parent? The second is, what happens when they leave school? So students are on our campuses 6 to 8 hours a day, some longer, but the school day is 6 hours. What about the other 18 hours? How are we teaching them to adapt to technology and learn part of that school environment? I don't have the answers. We've been debating this with my leadership team and the principals, and it's divided. Some say let's ban it, some say let them figure it out, and others are falling in the middle. So we're looking at the research to decide what are different approaches we can do. To be direct, I think as a district, we're going to experiment and look based on, we'll take research for each of those types and then try it out in the schools and continue to have the conversations, but we need a lot of parent engagement with that. And it's a complicated topic. So I appreciate the conversation on the cell phones, but I personally have struggles with mine. So I need as much support as the next. Do I have all the cards? If I have all the cards, I apologize. I'm slowing this down. No? Okay. All right. Here, we're gonna divvy them up. and pass them down. And there are some in here. I will be direct. A couple of these are specific topics that I think is more appropriate for a one-on-one conversation. So as we look through these, I just want to make sure that some of these are a one-on-one conversation. Some of these are broader for the next forum or a topic that we need to have. This setting may not have it. So I am filtering through some of these because I want to follow up appropriately. So the question I have here is homework. You see in survey results that homework is one of the top stressors, and this will probably be one for the students. I want them to weigh in on the stress of homework and what do we do about that. So as a district, we have had conversations around homework. So the local PTA, national PTA has passed resolutions around homework about quality, not quantity. Locally, we have engaged in conversations about creating guidelines. State of California, the determination of homework is under a teacher's purview. It's something that teachers have the right to determine what's appropriate homework. It doesn't mean we should not talk about the conversation. I know that's probably a controversial thing I just said for some of the teachers. I'm not going to mandate it as a superintendent. I can't legally mandate what teachers provide as far as homework, but I do feel it's important that we get the feedback when we see survey results that say that students are stressed about homework. When parents want to have the conversation, I encourage it that we talk about what does quality homework look like. But since we have students available, I'd like to just hear the thoughts on homework and stress.
So homework, it's a great topic. Homework, it's a lot on time management, I'll be honest. So students, it's being able to not just juggle homework, but to juggle extracurriculars and to juggle life and to juggle family and to juggle when you're gonna eat and, you know, just kind of the basics of what it is. It usually depends how much you get on what classes you're taking. So AP classes are heavy hitting. I'm going to be doing a couple AP classes and I'm not looking forward to it homework wise and, you know, time spending wise, but it's a tough thing to kind of grapple with if you're not very good at time management. And that's, I think, one of the biggest contributing factors as to why we are very stressed out. So we'll have, let's just put in, you know, academic life and then extracurricular life and then you know, social media life, because that exists too, and family relations and how to deal with all of that. And I think personally for me, freshman year is going to be the year where as parents, I would highly suggest figuring out how to come up with a plan that doesn't sound so attacking, but of how does your kid manage his time, to be his or her time, to be accountable as to this is your responsibility in your life to be able to do. This is your work now. This is treated as your responsibility. You have to stay on top of yourself. I mean, in the household I grew up in, accountability is a huge thing. It's my mom's like, Vale, I'm going to tell you how it works, and if this is how it goes, and I'm telling you the answers, it's your choices on how you make it work. If you're messing up, it's on your terms. So I think if you present homework in a sense where, hey, this is your responsibility, you gotta kind of keep on top of it, give them the independence while at the same time helping them measure out and balance, you know, what's the best fit of work that you should be doing? What's the best load that you can handle? How can you do this? It's easier, it's more capable to manage and grapple with versus, you know, throwing everything on the plate and just kind of being like, okay, you know. So it's more of teaching how to deal with time and manage time versus how can you, how can I place this? Like, how can you take all of this and handle it in one? It's being able to grapple. I mean, that's the biggest thing I find.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Valeria. I do believe it's the responsibility of the child because you do sign a contract before you enter an AP class. But I also think it's a conversation that should be had with teachers. I do experience a lot of quantity over quality in my educational career. And I think that that is a conversation that teachers definitely need to sit down and have and decide what's important and what is not.
Yeah, I fully agree with my peers. And also, one thing that the parents can help their child with is when they pick classes for high school, help them pick classes that they know they can handle. And do not do an AP class just because it will look good on college or because your friends are doing it. Do it because you love that subject so much and you're willing to put the extra effort in. Because honestly, it's better to get an A in a regular class than a B in an AP class, because at the end of the day, colleges they do put emphasis on academics, but they do also care about who you are as a person. And like, I've gone through that because I'm a senior. I'm not a senior anymore. I recently graduated from school, high school, so I know what the college application process is about. And schools do care about what the child is as a person. That's what your 4 main essays are about for college. It's not about taking all of the AP classes at school, and it's not about excelling on 5 varsity sports and like doing this and that and that. It's focusing on the things that you're passionate about. And also, like my peers have said, time management is a huge factor, and I feel like teachers should be more aware about assigning homework more for quality rather than the quantity. One thing that my calculus teacher did is he had us sign a contract in the beginning of the year. He said, all the homework, it's all on you. You can do it, you can't. You're accountable for it. And that actually was very helpful. So my teacher, he didn't check homework every single day. Doing homework was your responsibility. So if you felt like you needed to do homework because you didn't understand the lesson, you would do it. And you would hold yourself up to your own standards, and you would be monitoring yourself and saying, you know what, I didn't really understand this lesson, I'm going to do the homework on my own. And I feel like teachers should assign homework so students can learn rather than to look on, Spark Notes or to look on like Google.com or Yahoo Answers. Homework should be assigned as reinforcement and enriching their education rather than increasing stress.
So again, I want to reinforce my comment on homework. It's a conversation. No, I am serious. Students are always going to be passionate about it. They're going to let us know, and teachers are going to let us know, and parents are going to let us know. And it shouldn't be a battle, in my opinion. No one has the right answer about what is quality homework look like. A teacher may have a perspective that's different than a teacher than a parent than a student. But I think it's helpful for students and parents to give examples. Teachers will share why they provide the level of homework. I think all of us have had experience of amazing teachers that provide the right amount of homework, the quality amount of homework. When I was in the moment at times, I thought it was too much homework, and then when I finished, I'm like, wow, it was actually the right amount. So I think the conversation for us I love the contract approach of being very clear about the expectation, sitting down with counselors and teachers about, I want to take this workload and I want to do this activity, and I want to do this athletic, I want to do this and this and this. We need to map that out. We need to say, is that realistic? Because as we move from being students to adults, we have to learn how, as the student said, prioritize and juggle and be able to make those decisions, and part of school is making those trade-offs. The expectations that we have, and this is more of a nationwide expectation of what is college and what does it take to get into college, and is college the only pathway to successful, happy lives? No, it's not. And we need to be very thoughtful. It may be for some, but not all, and you can take different pathways to get to the outcome you want. And that's something we can take on as a district of how do we demonstrate, and I know our counselors do that. I don't know if you want to weigh in more on this, but there are different pathways, and we try to have those conversations and highlight it. What are you passionate about? What do you want to, it's not like what job you want, what are you passionate about? How do we develop those skill sets with you? I think that is helps broaden the conversation around homework, and it makes, I think, potentially a more productive conversation. Anything I misspoke on?
You did not misspeak on it, anything.
Time to time.
But I know when we meet with students at Burroughs, it is like the superintendent said, we try to talk to them about what they're passionate about. And again, if that involves going to college, then that's what they should do. Some kids are very interested in art, so they want to go to an art school. Or I have kids who are passionate about fixing cars, so they go to auto mechanics school. If a student chooses a career doing something that they love, then it's not like work, you know? So we have to not try to force everybody into the same, square pegs into round holes, and try to discover where kids' passions lie. And that's about it.
Absolutely.
So I got a comment on the new student mentor program. Is this talking about the Link Crew or like the CARE Coalition? It says the new student mentor program at JBHS seems risky. It's great to have peer mentors, but it puts a lot of pressure on 11th and 12th graders. I think all students should be in an environment that gets student and teacher mentors. The students in this panel have the right ideas, but teachers and schools need likewise to be involved into bringing kids. Wait, is this on Coalition or specifically Link Crew? Link Crew? Okay, so for those who may or may not know, Link Crew is a new system program put into place where 11th and 12th graders become peer mentors for the incoming 9th graders. It's kind of like a building block onto creating connections, like a big brother, big sister kind of a system where we connect and we have to play and we talk to these students in order, to not make the big campus seem so big. I like your idea on like students and mentors, but I think Link Crew specifically is to be able to facilitate like connections between students and within the student body. I recently joined Link Crew, and I'm on Link Crew as well as Nicole. And so I was also new to John Burroughs High School this year as an 11th grader. And I've moved around. This is my 8th school in my entire life. So I know the feeling of uncomfortable, awkward, being alone, hi, friendly faces, but no one's really inviting you kind of a thing. And so if you're able, for me, oh man, if I had a big sister or a big brother, they're like, hey, Valeria, you want to come and join us? Hey, I've spoken to you a couple of times. Let's go and reach out and let's talk. Hey, you can sit with me at lunch, where I wouldn't have to sit by myself in my physics classroom, for a good 3 months. you're able to facilitate, we're able to connect with kids that are younger, you know, the freshman year. And as much as I know upperclassmen, you know, call freshmen out for being freshmen, like, you're a freshman, it's a tough year. It's a hard year to go through. It's new, it's big, it's completely overstimulus of everything possible around you. And being able to have someone to look up to, someone to talk to, someone to reach a hand and be like, hey, you can sit down with us, hey, join in our group, until they figure out where they fit in or they flow. And, you know, I think it's a good idea to have that. Yeah, Nicole.
Sorry. Also, adding to that, I feel as though Link Crew also serves a way for 11 and 12th graders, students who have been through the stress of homework, extracurriculars, and who have all experienced those kind of stressors. They have experience and they could properly advise the younger 9th and 10th graders coming in and telling them how to handle time management. And it's not necessarily like a clinical mentor that's their job. It's more of a person you can look up to, and you could ask for advice when you don't feel like going to an adult or a counselor.
Thank you. The next question talks about, a parent talks about having experience with their teacher where their child has come home upset and feels like the teacher is not encouraging the child, putting the child down. So the parent wants to know, how do I have that conversation? Step one is go to the teacher. Our teachers want to have those conversations. It may be a joke, or maybe how that message was delivered, it was not intentional, or if it was intentional, our teachers want to hear that. So the first step is to have that conversation with the teacher. I know in various conversations I have, people are worried there's going to be retaliation, I'm going to be viewed as the troublemaker parent, my child's going to be retaliated against. I have zero tolerance for that type of behavior in this district, and it won't happen. So if it does happen, then you go to the principal. And if you're not hearing it, we do have a chain of command in the school district that makes sure that a student's voice is heard as well as parents' voices. You may get to the level where you feel like I'm not listening, and we have a school board as well. But I can tell you in my 3 years here, I will, if I haven't returned your email, it went into my spam filter. So I will return your email. It may take me a while. When I send out the all calls recently, it's 15,000 emails, so it takes me a while to respond to all of them. But I have a personal pledge to return those emails, return phone calls. We may disagree. I had a conversation yesterday, but we went back and forth, and we finally agreed to disagree. That's fine, we're humans, we're not going to agree on everything, but that first conversation needs to happen. And that's the culture and the expectation I have as the leader of the school district. So I want us to engage in that. And if you get stuck, then you can take it to your principal, and then you can take it to the district office level. And if you have to, you can take it to the school board meeting. But give each of us at each layer in that the opportunity to have a conversation. And that goes for students, that goes for parents, that goes for staff members. We want to engage in those conversations. Hopefully tonight is just one example of how we want to demonstrate that with our community.
Can you answer a question?
Absolutely.
One question I have is, do teachers have tools necessary to identify kids having issues? Do they recognize signs? Okay, so earlier I did say that a few of my teachers did recognize signs that me and my other peers were having, and they would often say, why don't you go to the wellness center? But as a whole, I do not yet, I don't think. And the reason I say not yet is because there is hope and this is possible. Teachers can be able to recognize the signs, whether kids are having issues, and the way that they can do it is, again, education and promoting awareness about recognizing symptoms of symptoms of a kid that's, suffering from any personal issues. And it is important for the teachers to recognize these signs because that can be part of that child's support system. And sometimes if a teacher reaches out to a student, it makes the student feel important, and it makes them feel worthy, and it makes them feel like that, someone actually cares about me and cares about my well-being. And for me personally, I think the way that this can be possible is for there to be educational seminars for teachers in the summer. I know teachers, you guys have your summers off, but this can be a really important time for maybe one seminar in the summer just about mental health and recognizing symptoms, or maybe having informational sessions, or just having more pamphlets available at school for recognizing symptoms of anxiety or depression. Just increasing the awareness and providing that support system that the child may not receive at home.
Thank you. And I received. Go ahead. Oh.
Well, we had a few.
Okay, I'll piggyback on that because I had a similar question. Is what trainings is BUSD planning to educate teachers and staff about mental illness? And then it's about how to have those conversations. And I would say a lot of us growing up, we didn't have those conversations. So it's using the right language, making sure we have access to the resources. So I mentioned earlier about, and it's also one of the handouts, the tips to observe the potential suicide risk for students, the suicide awareness training, as far as creating a culture around positive behavior intervention supports. So we're rolling out additional trainings for our teachers, but I love the word yet. So we have some of us, some of our employees are at the point where they can recognize that. They know how to have the answer the questions, refer for additional help when they need help. Others of us, we're not there yet, so we need the support and the training. And I want that to be very clear as we acknowledge that. We're not 100% able to identify the signs, able to connect to the resources, know who to connect to at what points in time. So that's the reinforcement, and that's why we now have a director of wellness to be able to collect the data, look at the data, and then identify those gaps, and then work with our partners and the research out there so that we can enhance what we're doing here in the district. That's the role of the wellness director, is not to be the one-stop guru that's going to work on all mental health issues. It's the one that's going to connect the dots around total well-being of whole child, whole community, whole school. I think I messed that up.
Close enough. Whole school with the whole community supporting the whole child.
Yeah. Child, school, community.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at, is connecting to those resources and making it into more of a robust support network. So I think, George, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we had a few questions about the Wellness Center and how it operates and functions. There was several questions. Is there any fees for the students who come to the Wellness Center? Absolutely not. All the services are free. If we have families, as I mentioned earlier, if we have families that we invite over to the agency because a student came to the Wellness Center and we had some additional questions or concerns, we don't charge for those services either. Family Service Agency is a fee-for-service community-based agency, so we do operate it on a sliding scale. If any of those families or the students need additional and we perceive those services are going to be more long-term, then we will talk to the family about those sliding scale fees. We do have the ability to assist families in billing their private insurances, but we don't bill the insurances directly. That's just because we're not on those panels and set up that way, but a lot of families do take advantage of that method. And then there was some questions about how we manage the center. I think there were several cards that said, what do you do if a student is in the center and really just using the center for the wrong reason? And we tend to pay very close attention to the students that are coming in. We train our counselors to watch for students who might be using the center for other purposes than what it was intended. So we do check in with the students when they're in the center quite frequently to see if they're okay, if they need any information. And we do track how many students come in and how often they come in. And it's not that hard to kind of figure out what students just coming in to avoid other things and not really intending to utilize the resources. So we will ask students to go back to class, and we dialogue about the students that come into the center on a daily basis, 5 days a week as a staff. Myself, Jenny, our other licensed therapists, our directors, our coordinators, we go over the issues that came into the center every day. We have a means of communicating with each other. And communicating means we talk about certain students' special issues. We kind of explore what trends we're seeing. We've helped some students form small groups and let them discuss things amongst themselves with our assistants. So there's a constant oversight of what is happening and what students are coming in with what kind of concerns. And with our staff, we do have master's level counselors. If some of you know what the process is to become a licensed therapist, it's a rather long process. We have some students that are still in their graduate program, but usually those students are towards the end of that program, and that's the only reason they have the opportunity to come out into the field. And with those graduate programs, we have constant relationships, and we have both professional and legal relationships with those graduate programs. We don't just accept their students, we interview, we screen, and then we also are constantly giving evaluations and working with the practicum instructors at the universities. If a student has graduated and they're in the tail end of now working towards licensing, we do a lot of in-service trainings with our counselors. We do in-service trainings monthly. As a matter of fact, we have one tomorrow night, and that's Friday night, and usually that's not the most favorite night to do a training, but our counselors will be there tomorrow, and we have some important topics. They're very dedicated to the work. Otherwise, I know they wouldn't come on a Friday night, but they do come voluntarily. And we're continually doing those trainings and offering new information that is really up to what is happening now in the therapeutic field. So I think that's one of the advantages of FSA is that we do a lot of, I wouldn't call it networking, but I would say we interact with each other as staff, really work as a team. If there is an issue that comes up in the Wellness Center, our counselors can contact our center, and our directors, licensed people, supervisors can be down at a school in 5 minutes or even less, and we do that rather frequently. If some of you have had that experience, we can go down to the Wellness Center, interview the student, and then start doing the necessary steps to build that network of help. So I think most of the questions I got were about that. How does that really work? Again, we do track, and we're constantly overseeing, and we're constantly communicating. Yeah.
The center offer hours to be 7 a.m. right when the kids arrive at school.
Oh, is the Wellness Center open at 7?
The Wellness Center, do they have availability to see students at that time?
Do we have the one?
During the regular school year, the Wellness Centers open up at 10, and we're there till 4 o'clock. So we're open from that whole time, so they can come at lunchtime or after school or during class time. During the summertime, we'll be open at 8 till 2 because summer school's out at 1 o'clock. So those are the hours that we're open. But there's always a number We have a cell phone number that students can call. So if at any time before the 10 o'clock hour there's an issue or they need to talk to someone, we're available to do that.
But one of the things that I feel about the wellness centers, and I feel like it's very underutilized, like you got it open from 10 to 4. Well, the kids are in school. Most students are going to need the support after school or either on the weekends. And I feel that expanding that time would allow the wellness center to be a wellness center. But it's like you're saying, okay, you can only need help from 10 to 4. And what do I do after 4 o'clock? It's not an emergency. I just need to talk to people. The other part I want to add to that is that in terms of the outreach to the families, I feel that it's a lot on a lot of parents to have to come to the center. That part of the outreach needs to be engaged in the home. I feel that when you're in the home, you really get to know a lot about the student. And there's this thing called a master plan that I was on the mayor's task force along with Lori. We call it the mayor's task force for children. And in developing that master plan, what we did was we had a survey and we sent it out to all the kids. So the kids told us what they wanted. And that was probably about 15 years ago. And I really haven't seen much come out of that, because one of the things the kids stipulated is that they really felt that they needed more help at home. So in my experience, when you're really trying to help the kids, you have to join with the family. And I know that takes more time, but I know that a lot of parents are here because what has happened in the last 6 or 7 months. And I know for me, I'm really torn on what are the answers. I want to really thank the students, because I think of everything that's been said. I hope that we're listening to what they said. Building awareness. May is National Mental Health Month. I think at the schools we can have a celebration of a National Mental Health Month. And the second week in October is National Mental Illness Awareness Week. So we have a lot of time to do that. And it's really nice, I think, that we're educating the students. But from my perspective, I really want to hear the in my own voice kind of thing. I want to hear about the families who have been affected. Now, it's nice to hear from people that are providing the services, but on a human level, if you share your experience with me, then from your experience, maybe we can figure out how to fix other things. But we can't keep starting over when I think we have the tools to do what we need to do. We just need to be a little bit more creative about it.
So I want to invite people again to the open house at the Wellness Center this Monday. Lori and I are going to be there to have more of this type of open dialogue back and forth. I want to just clarify one thing. We're not starting over. I want to make sure that's very clear. Tonight's forum is an opportunity to bring greater awareness to what we're doing and hear feedback and begin to continue what we're doing. So I want to highlight that aspect of none of us are saying, wow, we just got to stop doing what we've been doing. No, there's a lot of great work that we've done in partnership that we need to continue to build on. I love the suggestion that we look at if families or individuals feel comfortable sharing their personal experiences, we can set up forums or more of a conversation about that. So I agree. I don't disagree what you're saying. Lori and I can talk about the specifics of the Wellness Center and different structures Monday night, and we can follow up with those questions. Unless, Lori, did you want to comment on a couple right now? Or
clearly, as Dr. Hill said, there's more work to be done here, and it's urgent work. So I'm just inspired by all of you being here. I hope you'll come Monday night so that we can all be more informal. But the hours, just so you know, we are available to your students. We are available to your to your families, as was said here. And we implemented a cell phone so that we made sure that access, and kids do text us and those kinds of things, so your students are using those pieces. We just want to make sure we reach all those kids and these young people that are coming to aid and shove us around and get in our face and keep us honest. This is all good stuff. So I hope you'll all come Monday so we can talk more about it. But all of this is very fluid. The beauty of a community-based organization like FSA is that we are able to move about and respond to you. The reason it's existed for 65 years is because it responded to your needs. So we're here to do that. Come talk to us. Just come talk to us.
Thank you. I've received several cards on bullying. Depends on how late we want to stay. But no, bullying is an important topic, but I do feel like it's a dedicated conversation and topic for us to engage in. I do want to highlight one of the committees that we have in the district, and Johanna, if you can share a little more about the Safe and Caring School Climate Committee. They've been talking and discussing how have we been addressing bullying. Let's make sure it's easy for students to report bullying. How do we follow up on that? One of the specific questions was around, well, you need proof of bullying. And with Snapchat, we can't prove it, so what do we do? And so that's gonna intersect with social media, access to students. Is Snapchat an appropriate tool? How do you monitor? I know we need to bring in some panels. FSA has some resources on cyberbullying, others we've posted on our website. There's a dedicated page to resources around that. That is a very complex, ongoing conversation that there's always been bullying in schools, and now it's morphed to this electronic form. So how do we stay on top of that? I want Johanna to weigh in a little bit, and then I'll ask the students if you can weigh in from your perspective, but let's Johanna weigh a little bit on that, the Safe and Caring Climate Committee.
So we have a Safe and Caring School Climate Committee that is open to students, age appropriately, and parents and staff and stakeholders to be able to take a look at how can we revisit and reinforce our schools as safe and caring, nurturing places to be. And it sort of speaks to what my younger colleagues at the end of the table were talking about, and that is a connectedness to someone who demonstrates genuine care and genuine empathy and is thoughtful about the words they use and thoughtful about the actions that they engage in. And you know, the research on bullying continues to evolve, and it is multifaceted. And as Matt was saying, we've put a lot of resources on our website. We've had sessions at the Wellness Symposium. I did a session on bullying and cyberbullying. The PowerPoint presentation's up there, the links are up there. But we're also, as a district, taking an approach with the PBIS, which is Positive Behavior Intervention and Support, to really work with staff to be able to model and be able to empower each other and the students about how to interact and how to communicate together. And that's part of that committee, along with the Mental Emotional Wellbeing Committee. And so we're looking at the policies we have in place, and Burbank has some of the best policies. If you look at all the policies on bullying nationwide, every state has some type of policies, and California's and ours are some of the most robust. But that doesn't mean we can't revisit them and make them even better for our needs here in our district. So that's part of what that committee does. And we're working to really create that environment so it is a safe, nurturing place for everybody.
Thank you, Johanna. I asked the students to weigh in as we implement policies and trainings and professional development. What are you seeing as students, and what do you see as a best practice of what we should be doing?
Well, just to propose a challenge to us all, it's that as students, we hear a lot about bullying and what to do after it happens. There's a lot of reaction to it, but there's not enough prevention. There's not enough programs how to keep it from happening in the first place. So I think we don't have all the answers, but that's a challenge for us as a community to start having a conversation about that.
And also, in addition to preventing bullying, a major part of that is having a support system, and that can be established within your family and within your school and with your peers and teachers and counselors. And I totally agree with what Nicole said. We as a society are more we're reacting to something rather than preventing. And I just feel like more knowledge and awareness about bullying and stigma would just help us students in general. I mean, like, we're just kids, like, we don't have all the answers, but we are going to be part of that generation that changes. It starts with us here, and we're going to be part of that next generation that will hopefully reform society's views on bullying.
Also, so to weigh in a bit on bullying has so many layers, like it's multifaceted, like Ms. Chase had said. And I think of a couple things when I think of bullying. When you are the bully, right, I feel like there's so many things that go into it. There's one place where I think it's an outgrowth of something else. It's an outgrowth that's coming from something internally, what's happening in your life, whatever. And maybe part of learning who you are. You know, you're kind of trying to figure out, when we think of bullying, it's like the stereotypical of, oh, this kid's being mean, like he's saying mean things to my face, saying mean things on social media, and which all happens, but it also kind of gets mixed up with drama. And bullying and drama go hand in hand, if you do not know. It does. It's a big, mucky, icky spaghetti sauce of just, what is this? And I think it's kind of hard to identify someone who is trying to learn about themselves and trying to figure things out as also someone who is a bully, someone who is mean, because I'm a big proponent of, you know, you also kind of have to be nice to the bully too. You gotta take a step into their shoes as, okay, if this person is being mean, if this person is having some sort of problem with another kid, if there is some action that is negative towards another human being, there has to be something behind it. And so bullying, I think, is a huge thing that should be spoken about. My peers were saying there's an aspect of connection that goes into preventing bullying. It's being able to have friends. It's being able to kind of reach out to everyone and say, like, hey, you know, you don't have to be that mean, or hey, it's not really necessary for you to go and take a leg up on someone else if you're feeling this way. I think if we're able to communicate not only just connection between one that is caring but also constructive, that's like, oh, I'm your big kid, I'm your mentor. Like, I don't know, I think I'm a big proponent of Link Crew here. But being able to facilitate some sort of connection, we're able to prevent bullying. We're able to prevent people from being negative to one another, because I don't think it's in human nature. We're not innately negative and mean to one another. It's an outgrowth. It's a learning. It's not, you know, something that's concrete. So yeah.
I think we just proved a point of that's the type of conversation we need to think about. How do we replicate in all of our schools, where students are reflecting on having the point of view of whether you have a panel on envisioning this. You have a panel of someone that's been a bully, someone that's been bullied, and someone that has the perspective that you just provided of, let's talk through this, and we can have the support of the adults as well. Historically, what we see in schools are you have an expert that gets paid because that person was bullied and overcame it and comes back and talks about the steps we can take. That's helpful, but it's not enough. I think you got to balance that out through tabletop conversations like this, what we just had, extremely powerful. Yeah, and let's continue it.
One thing I do have to add on is, like Valeria said, you do have to take you have to understand the perspective of the bully and the person who's being bullied. Both need to be recognized, and I feel like this can be done in a way by maybe proposing mental health, just health screenings in the beginning of the year and then doing it periodically throughout the year. And this can be a way for students to feel like their problems are being recognized, and by completing a simple survey, they might be able to just realize that, they're not alone and that there are other students struggling with similar things. And with these surveys and screenings, I feel like it will provide more knowledge and more facts for the district to realize how prevalent mental health and bullying is among the BUSD, and also just general knowledge for teachers to just kind of understand and realize more recognize symptoms of students just by increasing awareness. So I feel like surveys periodically throughout the year can be very beneficial in assessing a student's progression or regression.
Thank you. So I know there's other topics, but I also want to be mindful of the time, and as we said, we're going to make a commitment that this is a continuation of conversations we need to have. We will take the topics and work with students, with parents, with other organizations about what's the appropriate format going forward. Some of these will be small group conversations. Some of this will be online resources. Others will be a town hall format. We didn't do a town hall format tonight because I assumed that there was a lot of information we wanted to disseminate. So town hall, you're going to have a lot more of the storytelling going on, so we wouldn't have gotten through as much, but if we need to do a town hall format in the future. So I'm personally open. I know the board's open, as well as our partners, to let's figure out the right forums and the right conversations to have and continue this conversation. But I want to open up to the panelists if there's any last remarks that anyone wants to say before we close out the evening.
Hello. I just would like to say that I have some more questions here that I think are really important questions, and I know we're out of time, so I would like to make sure that the answers to these questions get disseminated after. So I'd like to write up some responses that we can get out to everybody so that these can still be answered.
And if there's some that you feel like we should answer now, by all means.
I think it's fine to follow up.
Okay. And we'll go through all of the questions and group them and provide it. This was a very rich conversation. From my point of view, I hope everyone else felt like it was a good start to the conversation we need to have.
Mr. Hill?
Absolutely.
Are the parents of these young ladies in the room?
One of them.
So I know one.
My mother is. My mom.
It started somewhere. I think it was the smartest thing you could have done was bringing those three ladies tonight.
If you guys have questions for us, you can ask later.
And it's just a reminder for all of us in the audience, as we're planning these future events, if your son or daughter has a story that should be told, or they have resources or perspective, because sometimes we find it is challenging. We're saying, well, okay, we want to plan this, and students like, this is an adult thing, I really don't want to. We have an exceptional group of individuals here that are like, we want to be on this panel. I'm like, and what? You don't have to twist my arm. It wasn't hard. It was one email. So but we don't always make that connection. We feel like, as adults, we need to have the conversation, and we don't want to expose students to this type of conversation. We're, hopefully tonight, I think it did, based on the reaction, we've moved past that. That is not, we need to constantly hear from students, and then we need to create it for parents. And what we can do is more of what I've seen it. I'm going to go on. I'm sorry. I could stay here till midnight, but I want to be respectful. But the fishbowl aspect, where you can have students in the middle having the conversations. As adults, we just sit there and listen. Take notes. Don't ask questions, don't interrupt, just listen. And then you can take that, and then we can be more thoughtful about how we design the supports. So I really, again, I appreciate everyone on the panel, but I appreciate our students because their perspective helped out. This is going to spark conversations by watching it online, from your sidewalk conversations that I know will happen. You can email me directly. I will farm it out to individuals. So it's Matt Hill at Burbank. I think everyone pretty much figures it out, but Matt Hill at burbankUSD.org. Send them to me. I will collect them. I'll filter them. Given the volume, just give me some latitude on how long it takes us to respond, but we want your questions, you want your feedback. If there's specific things going around about bullying, click on the resources that we have there. There's a bullying email address. I should know off the top of my head, but I'm drawing a blank. I don't want to missay it. Stop bullying.
Yeah, but just go to Google Burbank USD Caring Schools, and that will link you to everything, or just go right to our homepage. You can link it right off our homepage.
So the agenda that we emailed out that's here, you link it, we'll keep posting resources there. Again, Monday night, we'll have an open house where it's more of an informal conversation with Lori and myself. No questions off limits. We want to have the right forum to have conversations. If there's questions I can't answer, I'll be very direct with you. I can't answer that, but this is what I can answer. I feel that's how we move forward as a community. But I greatly appreciate everybody's engagement tonight, and we're...
Sorry, Spanish section have, what time is the open house on Monday?
6. 6? Did I do it right? Okay. I'm practicing Spanish, so I wanted to get a... How do you say 2-8? ¿Cómo se dice 2? 6 to...
6 a 8.
6 a 8. Okay. Gracias. But again, resources are here. This is the start of the conversation. Thank you all for coming this evening.